Hello, and thank you for joining me today on Love You, Live You podcast. We have a special guest today, Rene Urbanovich. Are you creative? Do you long to be more creative? Do you feel the creativity fairy? I'm going to start over. Okay. Hello, and thank you for joining me today on Love You, Live You podcast with Kathleen Heim. Are you creative? Do you long to be more creative? Do you feel the creativity fairy has passed you by? Do you wish to make more money off your creativity, but find yourself frustrated that you can't? That's what author Rene Urbanovich calls a conundrum.
Wait, conundrum.
Conundrum. Hello, and thank you for joining me today on Love You, Live You podcast with myself, host Kathleen Heim. Are you creative? Do you long to be more creative? Do you feel the creativity fairy has passed you by? Do you wish to make money off your creativity, but find yourself frustrated that you can't? Well, that's what author Rene Urbanovich calls a conundrum.
Conundrum.
Conundrum. Say it 5 times fast. Rene's 5th book, The Creativity Condundrum, addresses those issues with colorful pages, images, poetry, and scientific sources, as well as history of human evolution. I've actually had the opportunity to take a look at this book, and I'm going to tell you, it's amazing. Words do not do justice for the art in this book that Rene has created. Being creative is wired into our DNA, but why? Well, Rene became obsessed with her urge to create and went back to school at the age of 40 to solve the mystery of her wild relationship to creativity. She is one of the first students to self-design a bachelor's degree in creativity studies. She went on to earn a Master of Arts in Humanities, as well as a certificate in adult learning so she could spread the good news about why we are creative and how to use our creativity to fulfill that mission. She is an author, a speaker, creativity and voice teacher who's raised 4 super creative children with her partner Jimmy for over 35 years. If you're curious about creativity and how to connect with your innate creativity on a deeper level, you'll want to hear how Rene integrates the amazing phenomenon of creativity into everyday life and makes it her mission to spread a creativity. How do you say that, Rene?
A creativist.
A creativist worldview to redeem our mixed up, crazy world, or something like that. So she says. Welcome, Rene Urbanovich. I am so thrilled to have you on my show. I know Rene personally, and I know her professionally, and I'm going to tell you, it's a gift to have her on the show today. So welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm happy to be here.
So speak to us on this phenomena of creativity and how it affects our lives when we suppress that creativity.
That's one of the conundrums. So sometimes, especially when I was raising kids and I was busy every day going to soccer practice and, PTA and all the things you have to do as a mom, your own creativity feels like it's not even on the back burner. It feels like it's just, under the rug and you'll never see it again. So when that happens, I and artistic people and creative people who are in touch with it tend to wilt. And so until it's kind of like, I think that one of your tenets is connecting with your deeper self, your soul, or whatever you want to call it. I really believe that thing you're supposed to connect to is creativity. And so when you don't, you wilt and your life isn't as full and you feel like something's missing and you don't necessarily get to contribute your gifts to the world either. So it kind of stops you from being who you're meant to be and who you want to be. And then it stops you from contributing to the world at large because you're not there. And so we have a society full of people who don't touch down with their creativity, and therefore they don't contribute their gifts to society, and they wilt. So that's when you said the word suppress. That's when we suppress our creativity. That's kind of one of the conundrums that I talk about in the manuscript.
I love that you say that. And, you and I have had conversations many times about how people aren't living their life to their fullest, not to their fullest potential. They're not really happy. Something's missing. And from what I'm understanding, the way you see it, a lot of the time it's the suppressed creativity. Now, how do we teach people, or how do you teach people to get in touch with that inner creativity and move forward and from that suppression and that feeling of being held back?
Well, if I were to do workshops on that, what I start with is just a worldview. I start with people understanding what true creativity really, really is, and pretty much what it's not. So, some people think, oh, I'm just not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body. But after my research, I learned that, creativity is it's in every activity that we do, if you know what creativity is. And so I break it down into 10 components. So once you realize what it is and what it's for, then it makes you be kind of part of something much bigger and greater than yourself. And you have you're more apt to follow that drive and know that you have it. So it's like, if you don't know, I guess it just reminds me of your talk too, about when you don't know, you're just following this, hamster wheel, you called it. You're just following this track. And one of my favorite scientists was David Bohm, and he was actually friends with Albert Einstein, and they worked together.
Wow.
To the point that they didn't. And he's who I get most of my ideas from. And he's got a very small cult following, but he really believes that you can't have one person apart from the whole. There's the small parts make the whole. And he proves it through, quantum physics and the theory of the plasma and stuff that my little tiny brain can't always explain well. But in the simplest term, one of my cells can't live outside of my body by itself. It can only live as part of the body. So that means that the small part is only alive. The small part is only existent depending on the whole. Like that. So I feel like that beginning to understand our unity, our innate oneness, and the idea that creativity exists inside of our DNA, in our brains. It's part of being human, and it's a property of the collective. It's to propagate our species. It's to help us. It's to propel us into, not destroying the planet. Creativity is a property that is not just for the individual. So once you understand that your creativity has a huge impact on everyone, then it helps you want to be a part of something greater. And when you wake up in the morning, instead of feeling like, oh, I should write in my journal, or I should vocalize, I don't know, I should paint, I don't feel like it. When you know that all of this hinges on your health, your good health, and then how you impact others, it helps you to realize that you're not just doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the collective.
I love that. And that's where you bring in the scientific portion of creativity. But you did mention that in your book that you list 10 ways people can identify their creativity. Would you mind sharing maybe just one or two of those ways?
Sure. Well, because some people think that creativity is artistic, and that it has nothing to do with anything that's not artsy. But we all know that scientific invention warrants the biggest creative, discoveries just from day one, from whoever invented the wheel or fire. So when you really focus on creativity, you can see that it's not just artistic stuff, it's science as well. And so one of the things, I don't know, I'll just pick one. One component of creativity is it's transformative. So like singing, because I'm a singing teacher too, singing actually lowers your blood pressure. Singing, you fill your lungs with air and then you vibrate. It's kind of like a meditation. It relieves anxiety. Singing and even journal writing has been proven to lower HIV numbers.
Wow.
So any creative activity that you do like maybe yoga, chanting, painting, writing in your journal, singing, playing guitar, painting the walls and watching the color go on, listening to music, staring at a piece of art. All of those activities are transformative for you on the inside because they're helping your cells be healthier. They're making a healthier person out of you physically, emotionally, on the micro, on the individual level. It's helping you with your anxiety, and it's helping you touch down with creativity, which is something that connects you to others. And then, of course, the stronger and more whole you are, the more you have to contribute to the world at large, because you're not at a deficit. You yourself are fulfilled by the phenomenon of creativity and what it can do for you individually, there, in order to go out and then contribute to the masses.
Wow, that's deep, Rene. But I have to say that I've been one of the lucky ones who's been able to take some vocal lessons from Rene, who's amazing. And I agree with what you're saying. And for myself personally, that time I spend singing or singing with you is exactly that, though I've never thought about it that way until your words right now. It is an outlet. Yep. It's very calming. Mm-hmm. It's very peaceful. You made a reference to being a meditative state, lowering your blood pressure. I believe that, but not only that, doing something that you love and from something that comes inside you, there's nothing that can make you feel better. And just to touch on that, there were days where I came in and the last thing I wanted to do was drive there and walk up that hill and go that long hill up to the studio and go in, for whatever reasons. I call them the why nots instead of the whys, but I never walked out of that studio the same person that walked in. Always walked out with a better mentation, with a better, this is love. This is, forget all the rest of the world. This is love. And forget the guy, forget all that. I love this. And it is.
And the other one would be exactly what you just said. I mean, just 2 out of the 10. One of them is called process. And so you just mentioned the word joy, and it's being in process. You're in a process of becoming either connected to creativity or becoming a better singer or whatever. But that process is where you find joy. When you're always rushing to the bank, oh, I have to make money off my singing, or I have to make money off my art, or whatever, you're rushing straight to the product. You're not being touched and transformed. You're not in the process. So you're skipping out on self-development and process, which is where the joy is. So when you come in and you make the appointment and you have to keep that appointment, you're allowing it to transform you, and you're touching down in creative process, it's nearly sacred. It's so transformative, and it's so powerful, and it does bring you joy. And you said it's love. It is love. It is.
It is. I love that. So Rene, there's a lot of things. You've written 5 books. You're a poet. So you're an amazing singer and vocal coach with so many accolades that you're so humble. What inspires you?
That's an interesting question. I'm often the one, behind the keyboard, and I'm often the one saying, what inspires you? Who are your influences? What is it your goals are? What do you dream about? So it's a tough question for me. I think over the years, what has inspired me the most, hands down, would be motherhood, which you and I have shared. Nothing like it. And the other thing that really motivates me and inspires me and keeps me up at night and keeps me trying to be healthy and be the best I can be is my just overpowering, overarching love for humankind. And before I die, I have to get the message out that, creativity is what holds all things together, and your creative energies are for the collective. So because of I can't help it. My mom said I kind of, at 6 months old, I cared more about my sister, and I would crawl on the carpet till my knees were bloody to give her a toy. So that story's in my mind, but for whatever reason, maybe it's, I'm a Libra. I don't know. I love humankind. I am very burdened for the masses. So even though I'm very happy in my personal life, I have a lot of love in my life. I have my beautiful kids, and I have my partner, and my mom and dad are still married, and they're still alive. And I have so much that inspires me and brings me love and kind of buoys me and holds me up, that I get to turn my attention on others all day, every day. And it's great. That's what I live for. So thanks for asking.
You're welcome. And I love that you're inspired to help others. It sounds like it was innate in you, crawling across the floor at 6 months old with bloody knees. I have a visual of that, and that's how I see you as a human being, Rene. You are that person, always about everybody other than yourself. As many accolades as you have, like I said before, you're very humble. And, you know, this shows a lot about lifting women up. I feel, you know, that oftentimes women are, like you said, and I've said, we've talked about that hamster wheel of life, just trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect wife, hold down the job. We forget what it is that's important to us. And a lot of times that is creativity. And I'll share with you, you know my story, so I guess I'm sharing with everybody else. After my divorce, after being a mom for all those years and being a wife and being an employee, and I went to a counselor after the divorce, and the counselor asked me, what do you like to do? What makes you happy? And I didn't have an answer. I don't know. I forgot. And then I went back to my, what makes me happy? Singing makes me happy. Music makes me happy. Writing makes me happy. Being with people such as yourself makes me happy. So once I was able to figure that out and connect with you and whatever, with my inner self, and create in my own way, my whole life changed. So what advice do you have for women out there, those women that were like me years ago, not knowing what it was that I even like to do? What advice would you give them right now that may create a shift within their life and move them in a forward direction?
So everything you just said, there just comes a point, you know, as a mom and as one of those, because women, female brains are wired completely differently than a male's brain.
No way.
I read that a female brain has more in common with a female monkey's brain than a human male. So
wait, say that again.
A female human has more in common with a female monkey brain than a male human. I don't know, I read that somewhere. But the point being that our networking is not as categorical and compartmentalized. So we are wired more creatively. We're more right-brained and emotional, and our networking is like porous. It's porous. Everything is wired for the collective. So we just already have that. So what we have to do at some point when we feel like it's all caught up with us is, as you said, just you hit a point, you hit a wall. Like you're being stretched, and you pretty much snap or whatever. Like you have to be able to see the red flags. So that was my first step. And I was, 35 probably when I realized I can't keep doing this. I have to save some for mama. I have to, or it's going to come back to bite you. And, we go through really hard times when we don't know how to care for do our self-care. So you have to reach that point, and then you have to carve out whatever you're going to do. So for you, it was, I'm going to go do singing lessons. For somebody else, for me, it was writing. First, I had to, because I was really a victim. I felt like a victim. I felt like everybody gets to do what they want, but I have to work, and I have a lot of kids, and I have to do this, and I have to do that. So the first thing that you get to exercise your creativity with is your thinking. So you have to stop thinking that you're a victim, or stop thinking that you can't, and start thinking that you can, right? Especially us in the global north. We're like most of us that have access to a podcast. We got time on our hands, and we're part of the 1% of the world that is able to do anything they want with their lives, right? So just changing your thinking, like, I'm not a victim. I chose to have these kids. What is it I'm gonna change my thinking? So change your thinking first, and then one little activity. I had a life coach tell me once, which I didn't have money for a life coach. I know that sounds like, oh, you had money. I didn't have any money. I traded singing lessons so I could have a life coach. And she asked me the same thing your therapist asked you, and which was, what do you like to do or whatever. And when you don't know, you realize, okay, I've lost myself altogether. But that's part of your self-development, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just like my little students, they want to belt their, ass off. They want to sing really hard, but they wreck their voice. Kind of have to go through an experience like that before you go, whoa, if I don't take care of myself, I'm no good to anybody. So you go through that, you change your thinking, and then you just carve it out. So the life coach said, okay, you want to be a writer, just write 1 day a week. Just do it 1 day a week. And I thought, I can't, I'm too busy. I didn't. And then I thought, okay, she's right, I'm going to try it. So I carved out a half a day a week. And so I have never stopped working full time. I've written all 5 books by just taking a little chunk out of my day. So for a while, it was just a half a day a week. I didn't schedule students from 8 in the morning till noon on Tuesdays. And I would drive to my friend Gerald's house, and we were writing a musical or whatever we were doing. So I did that. So baby steps. And that kind of advice does not fly with 20-year-olds because they don't want to do baby steps. But those small baby steps, you just have to, it's just the same thing as the rule of 9s. You have to set your intention. You have to decide what it is you want. But changing your thinking, I think, is key. And then just picking half a day, and carving out time for you to either go to the park, read a book, take a nap, whatever it is, it's going to be just for you. Julia Cameron wrote The Artist's Way, and it's super famous. It's been around for years and years and years. And she refers to your creativity as an orphan. And so she wants you once a week to take your little orphan out on a date. And it worked for me. I was going through her book, and it really worked. And she's a nag. She's a big nag. She nags you throughout the whole book to keep taking your artist orphan out to play. So that's her advice, but that's what definitely worked for me to transform my busy, crazy life where, my victim mentality.
Well, you touched on so many things, and I want to circle back on a couple of them. So you say victim, and there's a meditation that I listen to at night, and what resonates with me from that meditation is, don't be a victim, be victorious.
Well, that's nice.
Being a victim is a choice, and that's what you're saying. So if you find yourself in this situation where you feel like you've basically lost yourself, don't be a victim, be victorious. Start with your mind. Stop thinking of the why nots and think of the whys. It's important. You said take yourself on a date, whatever that looks like. And that's important. Make time for you first, because if you can't give to you, you can't give to others. And I think as women, like you've mentioned, we get lost in, being the people pleaser, all things to all people at all times across the board. Right. Another thing you touched on was how I took it was embrace the journey. Don't worry about the end result. Enjoy the process each day.
Yep.
Be in the moment.
Well, and sometimes there's a lot of anger. I don't know about you, but I know for me and for other women that I've talked to, once you just come up against that and go, wow, all my energy is going out to everybody else, there's an anger there. But for me, I feel like accepting the fact that you were that way is part of your development. It's part of it. You can't spend time being mad that you did that and that you lost yourself. You just appreciate that I had to go through that in order to see what I'm going to see now. But I have daughters that are, I have a 29-year-old daughter right now, and it's reminding me of when I was 30. I remember very, very well going through these stages. And so, mythologically speaking, we go through stages. It's developmentally normal for me at my age to be at a crossroads and, post-menopause. And it's developmentally normal for a 30-year-old woman or a 35-year-old woman to say, hey, I'm sick of, being all things to all people. It is so normal. And that makes you feel like, oh, I'm just part of the tribe. And this is just part of our, journey. And that's part of embracing it. I guess, embracing it and not ever being mad about it.
I love that, because there are so many of us that have been there or are there. And again, we're speaking to those out there who are in this situation right now. And about being angry, yes, I've been there, angry for the choices I'm making, but realize it's a choice. And you're talking about your daughter. My daughter's 21. She recently turned 21, and she's an overachiever, is what I would call her, and amazing and very successful in everything she does. But to what is the sacrifice? What is the self-sacrifice? So I'm trying to teach her at a young age. So last weekend she called me crying, you know, because she's driving all the people who are drinking to a concert for 3 hours, and she's the mom basically. And I had to tell her, like I'm telling all of you, she chose to drive all those people. That was her choice. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. And if you do decide to do it, don't be angry about it. Take a minute to think before you react or before you say yes. Is that good for you? I say give to yourself first, then outwardly appropriate. Meaning, if I feel me, then who's next in line? My kids. Who's next in line? And that's individual for everybody. And it's so important, like you said, to find out what that is for you. And your book has 10 ways that somebody could figure that out.
Well, I like that that's a good word that you gave her. And one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been able to give my daughter was just that. Before you answer, this is the best thing. And I didn't learn this until I was like 48. Let me think about that. Oh, I'll give that some thought. I should have been doing that since I was, 18 years old. Let me think about that. That's the best advice ever. Think about it. I'll think about it. Yeah, great advice.
100%. It's the best advice ever, because we're too quick to say yes, because that's how we were, unfortunately, we were groomed by society to be that person, to be all things. I have to tell you, I saw something today on social media. It was a guide, how to train your wife back from the 50s, so that she responds to cues like snapping of fingers. And I saw another one on how to be a good wife, and I realized because I didn't put a bow on my head every day, it didn't work out. Gotta believe that. So, Rene, tell me about a time that you've failed, and how did you use that failure? How did you overcome that failure and use that to teach you and elevate you to a higher place?
Wow. Well, I think that renaming failure. So I went to this really great school, and my mentor pretty much taught me to. I used to have like 5 what they call breakdowns or episodes when I was going through what we're talking about, when I was just trying to do all this stuff. And so, they weren't pretty, but my mentor at the time taught me that they're good for you, that have to happen. Don't look down on them. They're productive. She taught me the myth behind them, and how sacred those moments are when you're so attached to your deepest unconscious that it comes out like a wild animal, that it's just all good. So trying to maintain those thought forms that she offered to me, I would say I've never failed. That to me, all of those moments of, feeling like I'm a failure, or I'm a piece of shit, or I wronged somebody, or I made the wrong decision, none of those things have a place for me now. And in my thinking and in my kids' thinking, this is how we learn, this is how we grow. And it's that whole, crisis is opportunity. This is the flip side. So, but yeah, I used to push myself so hard that I would completely have an episode, and I'd have to, go to the beach for 3 days, and my partner would have to take care of me, and I would just cry, complete breakdowns. But I don't feel like that was failure. But I'm an A student. I'm an overachiever. I'm an ass kicker, and along with that comes I'm not good enough. I need to do more and all of that. So I just feel like that's my fuel. But I fail in my, eating habits. I fail in my exercise. I failed my kids, and we talk about how I failed them. But we try and look at it so that it's not necessarily a fail. I'm always doing the best I can. as hard as I can. So I just feel like I didn't really fail my kids. What we knew when I was 23 and what we know now, obviously, oopsie daisy, macaroni and cheese, oops, I failed my kids. I gave my kids macaroni and cheese and top ramen, right? I just fed them fruit, those things with the fruit that were like complete chemicals. That would be considered failing your kids. We took them to McDonald's regularly. But we didn't know when I was 25, I'm 55 now, 30 years ago, we did not do to food what we do now. So all I can say is, God, you can read my diaries. I did the best I could, and it still was, an oops sometimes. So I guess you just keep reframing your view of yourself and just know you're doing the best you can. I don't know.
Well, what you think are failures, or you're saying, maybe I failed my kids. What's important for everybody to understand is that we're not perfect, and it's okay. And it's not a failure. I like to think of struggle equals strength. Whatever struggles we go through make us stronger. So I don't want to call it a struggle, it's a strength. And we've all done things that, looking back 30 years ago, if we knew then what we know now, we would make a different choice.
Yes.
But I think it's really important as women. We have so many expectations that we've talked about. Be kind to yourself. Mm-hmm. Forgive yourself. Take that inner child inside. If that would be in touch with that inner self, with that inner child, be kind to that inner child. Be kind to that inner self. Tell them it's okay. What would you say to your kid? What would you say to your friend if they did something that maybe could have been done differently, and learn from it? It's all growth. And like you said, we need to go through that. If we don't go through struggles, we don't get strengths. Mm-hmm. If we don't have failures, so to speak, we don't have successes, mm-hmm. and we don't grow as a human being. So embrace those moments where you feel that you could do things different, learn from them, and move forward to be a better you. And again, I can't say enough, be kind to yourself. And a lot of, before I even go there, Rene, you've done so many things. I'm going to say it again. You're an author. You've written 5 books. You are a speaker, a motivational and an inspirational speaker. You're a famous vocal coach, though you're so humble, and a mother and a wife and a friend and everything else. Amazing. You're how do you say it again? Creativist?
Oh, a creativist. Oh, I need to talk about that.
Yes, I would like you to talk about that.
Okay.
And your plans for the future.
Well, a creativist is someone who dedicates their creative energies and their creative output, their products, and their energies to the collective. Because once you go through my book and you realize what true creativity is and why it exists, which is, the secret to creativity is that it just holds all things together. It's for unity. That's what the whole mission of creativity is. And so once you realize that, then you become a creativist, and everything that you do is for the collective and to keep us unified. It's to connect you to your deeper self, to connect you to others, and to connect you to the universe. So all of that deep connection is a property of creativity. So when you're a creativist, it means you're aware. It's like you're an activist for creativity. You're an activist to keep us connected, to keep us unified, and to do right by our humanity.
In a very passive, calm, creative, loving way.
Right.
Peace.
Loving way.
Peace. So, Rene, tell me how you love you, live you.
Okay. Love you, live you. I think that I just talked to someone last night. Her name is Tracy, and I talk to you often, and I talk to a lot of women in their 50s, and and my friend Dawn, we all agree, we love making other people happy. We love it. It's so fun to be able to wave your magic wand and, maybe buy someone lunch or help them with this or go clean their house or pick them up and take them somewhere. Just all of it. That makes me happy. But the thing that you're saying is we have to have our tanks full first, or we're no good to anybody. So for me, I think that I really, really love writing poetry. And I do go on walks in the sunshine. And I would say they're somewhat meditative, but I don't literally meditate. But I walk a lot and I hike, but mostly I write poetry. That's what really, really makes me so happy. I love playing with words. I just love it. It's what makes me feel like I'm being loving to myself. But bigger than that is me and all my girlfriends. Making other people happy is great. It's so fun. But, you know, we got to fill up our tank first.
We do. And that's great that you're doing it in more than one way, for sure. And I love what you're saying about doing for others and how it makes you feel. I agree with that. The nicer, personally speaking, the nicer I am to people, the more I build people up. You know, what do they say? I'm going to fix her crown, not rip it off. The more you or myself embrace that, I can't speak for everybody, but embrace that mentality, mm-hmm. Lift other women up, mm-hmm. Give them their time to shine, mm-hmm. The happier I become as a human being. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And you've done that for me. You've been very generous sharing your platform with me and all your hard work, because I know how much work it goes into all of this. So you're definitely an example of someone who doesn't tear someone's crown down and who doesn't have to step on someone to make themselves higher up. And oh my gosh, in my humanities class, we just watched Mean Girls. Do you remember that? It's 20 years old now. It's 20 years old. And we talked about how women have to learn how to do just that instead of, you know, pulling each other down, because it's new, all this power women have. It's very new. And so we don't have to be competitive. We can be communal about all of our endeavors. And then we're that much stronger.
That movie, Mean Girls, my daughter and I used to watch that all the time, and we'd have discussions about how to get through those situations. But it really is so true. The gift that you receive from those that are willing to receive it, when you are that person that lifts them up, when you are that person that fixes that crown, is undescribable. The bond that you create with other people and how good it feels. And, you know, I know you do that for others, and I know you're very appreciated. It's your soul. You've got a really giving, loving soul. Everybody here, Rene Urbanovich, is amazing. I would like to know, are there any questions or that I haven't asked you, or anything that you'd like to talk about that I haven't asked you? I would love you to feel free to speak.
Okay. Well, it's always a little bit awkward at the end. And so I've had a few experiences. And of course, this podcast is definitely more feminine, and there's more opportunity to be super authentic, which is really neat. So I guess just because I do this every day, that the only thing I have to say, I mean, philosophically, I would love if you're a reader to pick up the book, The Creativity Conundrum, on my website. And if you're a reader, read it. It's really life-changing. It's really inspiring. But the nitty-gritty, to get to the nitty-gritty of that, is just stay connected first to yourself and then to everyone around you. And everything we've been talking about, just plug in. It's like the avatar. You got to plug in, get your power, get your strength, plug into your creativity, and then share it and make a difference. And be a creativist. Don't be passive. Be an activist for the good. Be an activist to be transformative and to be in process. We're all in process. So just to kind of tie in everything not everything, but a lot of what we discussed. And so I guess, yeah, and thank you.
So Rene, so tell our listeners, how do they order your book? How can they get in touch with you? What is your website?
Okay, it's Rene. My name is Rene with 2 E's, not 3, R-E-N-E. And then the last name is Urbanovich, U-R-B-A-N-O-V-I-C-H, ReneUrbanovich.com. That's my website, but it's a hard name. So if you can remember the Creativity Conundrum, you might be able to find it that way.
And there it is behind you.
Yes, here it is. Here is the Creativity Conundrum. There's the word connection in there, and the word connection is crossed out because somewhere in our culture, some people might think it's not about connection, but it is. And that's what causes the conundrum. It's kind of complicated, but so am I. And my little call, I don't have the light on, but my little call to join the creativist community. And I have a website. If you go to Creativity Advocacy, you can become a creativist, which means we just have a little club. We have a community where we like to point out people like Kathleen Heim who are doing good things to promote unity and community with their creativity. And that would be you. So I need to take a screenshot of us because then I can put that on my Instagram and say, I caught Kathleen Heim being a creativist today because she is trying to help women with her podcast, Live, Love Me, Live Me, Live Me, Love Me.
Yes, thank you so much, Rene. I really love you. And I'm so happy that you were able to take your time out of your crazy busy schedule with all the great things that you're doing. Rene, thank you again, Rene Urbanovich. She gave you how to get in touch with her. So I highly encourage you to read her book. It is amazing. Everything that she speaks to is so different than anything that you've ever heard or read before. And it makes sense. And we're all here lifting other women up. Love you, live you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rene. I not talk, right?
Well, keep up. I'm so proud of you. You're so inspiring. Keep up the good work.
Bye, Rene. Love you.
Bye.